We are live, we are live, we are live. Okay. Okay, we are live right now, and thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Just getting the camera set right. Yeah. Just giving a few minutes. For everyone to join in. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. So we're going to start in just 15 seconds. I think it's enough time. 15 seconds. Okay, so thank you very much for joining this session today. I'll start off just by thanking those who have made it to watch the past 4 episodes that we have had on this series. And the response we've got has been very, very encouraging, very, 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 very interesting comments that we have received as well. And we thank everyone who has taken the time to go through the material and also started having some reflections related to aspects of generational wealth creation. So as we get into this session today, we are going to focus on 2 key aspects of how you start crafting and build, as you build your legacy in the broader generational wealth context. The 2 elements we will be looking at today are related to your life story, how your life story. If you remember from the last episode, what we looked at was some aspects of how you craft the information that you have within your legacy letter, which is what we are going to talk about at the end. Today we would look at some additional themes which should guide the way in which you craft your legacy letter, the way in which you write up your legacy letter for the benefit of the generations to come. The first aspect, as I've mentioned, would be on how you craft your life story. And then the second aspect, which we are going to end with today, is going to be some of the considerations you should have, some of the thoughts you should have, some of the reflections you should have when you craft your legacy letter. Let's get to it. On the other side of this, we'll get into Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. And thanks to everyone who has been a part of this series. The first four episodes have been bumper, amazing. We've had a lot of responses from people from all over the world. We've had a lot of comments, and a lot of people are also taking off the time to start reflecting about how they map out their way through this, this generational world journey that we are on. In fact, for today's episode, we are going to focus on your life story as a part of how you craft your legacy to be ready for the generations to come. The second aspect we are going to be looking at today is going to be considerations on how you put together your legacy letter. Last week we looked at 5 themes, and I'm just going to run through the themes quite quickly. The first thing we spoke about was the fog in the road. You would see, I'm just putting up, something. Okay, that's fine. The fork in the road mainly is related to how our lives take a specific turn because of certain events that we are confronted with, that we are faced with. Starting off, you could start off your life and you're living with your parents, and then suddenly one of the parents die, and it affects the rest of your life going forward. It could also be that maybe both your parents died when you were small, you were in school, and then suddenly you have to stop going to school, and that affects the outcome of your life. It could be that you move from one city to the next, to another city, and then your life takes a completely different turn. It could also be in the line of your career. You could have gone to school. I will take myself as an example. When I went to university the first time, I was very interested in, 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 in the diplomatic environment in politics, especially around communication within politics. And I went to university and I studied languages and communication with the hope of moving into the diplomatic service. But as time went on, I had other passions, I had other interests. In fact, an interest which has become my life's journey and my life's work. I had an interest in banking. And this interest came mainly because of a certain event that took place one day in the city where I grew up in Ghana. I remember I was going to the city center with my father, and we saw a big crowd in one of the streets, the main street in a commercial street in Bamenda called Commercial Avenue, and it was in front of a bank. And what had happened is, normally what would happen is that at the end of the month, pensioners would travel from different parts of the country and go into the city centers and wait for their pension to be paid. And on this fateful day, as we drove into the city, there was this crowd in front of one of the banks. There were pensioners all over the place. There was also the public around the entrance of the bank. What had happened? A pensioner who had traveled from one of the remote locations traveled into the city and the day before and did not have a place to stay. And he slept in front of the bank and woke up the next day with the hope, or with the hope of that the bank would open and he would be one of the first to get into the bank to receive his pension. And unfortunately that day, this pensioner did not wake up. So people found him at the entrance of the bank, dead. And that left an indelible mark in my heart. And I said to my father that day that one of the things I'd like to do in my life is to own a bank. And after a number of years, I went to school. I studied languages and communication. And then I left my country after university and I got to South Africa where I took a decision to start a new academic journey. I went into banking school and I started my banking education. And from then, I've moved on now. It has actually become an influence in my life. You could consider that a fork in the road. That I saw an event which impacted me, and I had a desire in my heart to have a bank that would give people the, the, the possibility to access their funds from wherever they are without having to come and gather in front of the bank for old people to come and sleep in front of the bank just because they want to have access to their money. And today we have set up one of the, I would say arguably one of the biggest digital financial services institutions around the continent, growing quite rapidly, and we thank God for all the support we are getting from all around the world, Africans on the continent and Africans across the diaspora. So that's just an example of what a fork in the road could be. The second element we spoke about is about yourself and your family, myself and my family. You know, when when you consider this thing, myself, my family, and myself, it's related to the fact that every one of us comes from a family. Every one of us have a father and a mother. There's no way you could actually be born if you didn't have a father and a mother. It could be parents who are present, or it could be parents who are not present. Yeah. So when you consider this thing, you have to go down a little bit deep into who your parents are, who your family, which family do you come from, which part of the country are you from, or of any of the countries where you're watching from, or any of the countries where you get to watch this later. All of that end up becoming a part of who you probably will end up becoming, or who you will decide not to, you decide whether you want to carry on with the legacy of that family, or you want to build a new legacy based on the history of the family where you come from. So all of that becomes an influence in how you craft your legacy later, which we're going to look at later. The next important thing which you would have to consider on your life's journey, which actually impacts on your legacy, is what is the meaning of wealth to you? What does wealth mean to you? What was your relationship when you were much younger with money? Is it is it were you exposed to money quite early? Have you been taught about how to save? Have you been taught about how to invest? Did you get to interact with money by trading? What is your relationship with money? And what's your understanding of the difference between money and wealth? So you would have to also consider this as a major thing. The other aspect, the other thing that we would, that you have to look at when you craft your life story, when you look at your life story, is what is the body of work that that has been a part of you through your life? What are the things you have done through your life? What is the work you do? Are you an artist? Are you a musician? Are you a diplomat? Are you a teacher? Are you a nurse? Are you a doctor? What is that? And how did you end up with it? And This is actually very interesting because I was having a conversation with one of my brothers and friends who's a pastor, and he told me of how he was named, how his, how his parents gave him the name. He said the day his mother gave birth to him, one of his uncles, who's a medical doctor, came to visit, and they gave the name he got was the name of that uncle who was a medical doctor. Interestingly, today this friend of mine is also a medical doctor. His brother, his pastor, is also a medical doctor. So all of that end up becoming part of how you end up with the body of the work you have in your life. The next thing, which is the next theme, which is also very important, is self-image and well-being. When we look at um, children in schools these days, there's a lot of bullying. In fact, when we grew up in school, we did not see any of the things that happen within the school environment as bullying. But as time has gone on, we have grown, we've learned, the world has changed. It's become clear that a lot of the things that happened uh, to us when we were in school, I can't even go into the detail of some of the things that happened when we were in boarding school. It's almost like a military reformatory camp when you start reflecting on some of those things. And and imagine body shaming people, all kinds of things. Yeah, and those things actually affect people's self-image. That it is actually not something that people consider, not knowing that your body image, your self-image, the way you see yourself could actually impact what your life's journey ends up becoming. Yeah? And also well-being. What's your relationship with your health? How well do you know your body in terms of your well-being? How much active are you an active person? Are you in sports? Do you jog? Do you run? Do you go to the gym? And things like that. All those things form part of the themes that are very important as you reflect on crafting your your your, your legacy letter. Yeah. The next important theme, which which you have to reflect on, is the male and female equation. You know, the world, there's been a lot of shift from when we were born to right now, where there's different kinds of gender. When we grew up, it was very clear. It was the male or the female. Yeah? But now the genders are actually shifting. The world is moving to another direction where there are even people who are gender neutral and all these kinds of things. What has been your relation in this environment? What has been your understanding? If you are male, what has been your relationship with the female gender? If you are female, what has been your relationship with the male gender? Not necessarily with romantic relationships, but how have you interacted in this space? Some people go to schools that are only girls' schools. Some people go to my daughters went one of them went fully into from primary to high school uh, to a school where it's only females. Yeah, it's a single sex school. But then the other one went partly to a single sex school and now they're in co-ed environment. What has been those relationships for you? Yeah? The next very important thing, I'm actually going through these themes very quickly because the core of our conversation this evening is actually how the considerations we should have as we craft our legacy letter for it to be ready to be transferred to the generations to come. Yeah? Um, the next thing that you have to consider to think about is is the theme of the end of life. So the end of life theme is actually the beauty about our life is that there are two certainties: when you are born and when you die. Yeah. So it's a leveler, irrespective of who you are. None of us is going to leave this world alive. Yeah. At some point, it will all come to an end. What is the relationship you have with that certainty of death? How much of your of your your life's journey have you reflected? Because when it gets to this point, as you age, as you get to the end of life, there are always these considerations of what are the things I should have done, what are the things I could have done, what are the things I have done which I have to done, what are the things if I had to go back, if I had the chance to go back, I was going to change it. So the end of life aspect of of, your as a legacy theme is extremely important. Yeah. And then the next one, which is also very, very important, is the elements of the spirit. Yeah, elements of the spirit. Um, it is a not. It is so from the secular to the spirit. Yeah, it is a natural wonder that lies within every one of us. Because every one of us has spirit. So what is been your relationship with your spirituality? There are people who have all other forms of beliefs, all kinds of beliefs. For me, I'm a Christian. I'm a born again Christian spirit filled. But everybody in the world is not Christian. Everybody in the world is not born again. Right? There are Muslims, there are Buddhists, there are people who are agnostic, and all of that. What has been your journey in the spiritual? Because whether we want it or not, we are all spirit beings. Yeah? And has there been a switch in what your spiritual thoughts and your spiritual preferences have been over time? Were you a Christian before? Were you introduced to Christianity by your family? And then as you grew older, you realize, no, all of this is a fallacy. Were you uh, not introduced to any form of spirituality, and when you became an adult, you decided to be, to explore this spiritual thing. So the secular to the spirit is actually a very, very important component of this reflection related to how you prepare and craft your legacy story. Yeah? And looking at your life's journey, looking at where you come from, and all of that. The next very important component is your life stage. So I spoke to you in the beginning about a specific um, event that switched my entire view of what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to impact humanity. Yeah? And today I'm leaving part of that chain. There's still a lot more that I'd like to expand within that chain. And all of that forms our life goals. And it's linked to our purpose, our visions, and the experiences we have had, which, which we now pull all of that together to actually build our life goals. What were the life goals, or what are the life goals you have? How many of them have you met? How many of them? In fact, when I was much younger, I was a footballer. I played football. A lot of people who knew me, apart from those who went to university with me, a lot of people actually thought all we did was play football, that we didn't have any other interests. But football for us was a game we played from the streets and to some of the main stadium around the country without a thought. Yeah. it wasn't really a life's goal, because at the end of the day, my life's goals were shaped by the life I have led, by my encounters around, different parts of the country where I grew up and moving into a new country. And when I left Cameroon into South Africa, I was very clear that I was going into that because of the experience I related much earlier in this podcast. So a key element. So when we have considered all of these things, it now starts narrowing down your thought of your own life and how you share that life with the people in the generations that are still to be born, the generations to come. Yeah. I started crafting my, a legacy letter for myself, a few, and that becomes our 10th theme, which is the legacy letter. I started crafting one for myself about two and a half years ago. That was after I had written the book Generational Wealth Creation, which I started writing in 2016 and finally finished it somewhere in 2018 and came out in the market late 2018. Yeah, and as I went into crafting this legacy letter, I realized that there's still a lot that I would like to do. There's still a lot that I would like to share with the generations. One of my coaches, Mike Self, he always shares this this reflection that you know at the point where you would want 2, 3, 4 generations beyond you to know about you, to actually have a clear picture of who you were, because obviously you may not even get to see them. Yeah. So he always has this reflection where he says, imagine that you are 90 years old and you are sitting on top of a hill and you have all your children, your grandchildren, and your great grandchildren standing in front of you or sitting in front of you. And you have to share your life story with them. What would you say? And you have to share what you know of your parents, what you know of your mother's family, what you know of your father's family. What would you say? If you had to share a story of, of how you went to school, what would you say to that generation? In considering all of that, what should be, what now we can do is that, knowing that we may not get to sit and tell the generations to come where we come from, who we are, what our feelings are, what our experiences are, what our values are, the best way to transmit that information from this generation to the generations to come is by crafting a legacy letter which would be which they can literally look at and know that and know something about you, because you would not be there and there would be no one else to tell your story. Yeah? I remember some, when we did history, there's this king in England who was called Joseph II. When he died, on his epitaph, he had the statement which read, because he was the ruler who came in with a lot of reforms and wanted to change a lot of things, but nothing really ended up working out for him. So he had on his epitaph, here lies a prince, the prince or a king, it could be anything. Here lies a king whose intentions were pure, but had the misfortune to see all of them miscarry. Yeah? And that was the statement. That is how he wanted everyone, whoever came to know about him, to that he was a king who had pure intentions, but found those intentions all miscarried. Yeah. So when you craft your legacy letter, know that it's for people who did not get to see your face. They may see your pictures, they may see videos of you, but they may never get to hear your heart. They may never get to hear, to know anything about you, and you have the opportunity to share that with them. And then your children can share the letter with the generations to come, and the generations to come can also share the letter with their own children. Yeah? So, a word of caution on the legacy letter. Don't actually think that anybody would really care, or somebody would really mind that I went to Citizen Bank in Amanda, for example. No one really cares about that. Yeah? Or would they like to read a lot of details and all of that? It would be really much appealing for them to know your heart. So a carefully well-crafted letter which shares your feelings, which expresses who you are, who you have become over time, and the life you've led would be a major legacy that you must transmit to the next generation. In crafting that letter, there are a number of things that that that, that you must just consider. Consider having these things in your legacy letter. I have a few here. So, first of all, we start off with the date. Date of the letter. Because imagine that in 100 years' time, somebody had to know that letter, had to share that letter with your great to the fourth, to the fifth generation. That letter, they should be able to see that this letter was written in on the 15th of June, 2021, and that would be 100 years from now. So consider, make sure that you have a date. Yeah. Um, and then you also do, so you also lay the groundwork of why this letter is being written. Actually, tell them why you took off the time to write a letter to them, to write a letter to that third, fourth, fifth generation. Share with them the experiences, the values that you have carried, and how that has proved, and how that has helped you. Establish your spiritual foundations. What spiritually, who have you been over time? As a spirit being, who have you been? Yeah? And then share the details of the activities that you do as a child. And some people like dancing, some people I like play football, biking. In fact, one of the activities I was sharing with my kids the other day, how we used to play with marbles. We go out and play with marbles, and my older brother was like a champion marble player. And we had it in these big containers, We had about 8 of them. We had run the entire neighborhood, and we kept them. And we take these marbles and go to different schools and we sell marbles to kids. And one day we went out, and by the time we came back, my mom found the marbles and poured everything into the toilet. So playing marbles was one of the most exciting times of us. We played football. So we want to have the games that we do. Some people like the piano, some people like the violin or trumpet, some people, they like to swim, and they go to the river and swim and all of that. So share all of that with them. And then your parents, talk about your parents. Tell them who your parents are. Where do your parents are? who were their parents? What did they do in life? What was their vocation? They were parents farmers, they were school teacher, they were nurse, doctor, engineer, whatever. Share these things in your legacy. Talk about the elements that really make you your parents. There's, for some people, you may have been a single mother, a single father who raised them. Make sure that you, you share some information with the generations to come. Another element is, where did you go to school? Why did you actually go to that school? How did you end up in that school? And how has the fact that you went to school led you to where you are? Also share with them the friends you made in school. Those who are still around, those who are wondering where they are, and those that you may still have a relationship with. Some of them have stuck around with you over time. Yeah? So share those elements of your school with them. The next important aspect you must consider is to talk about love. What love means. What does it mean to love? What does it mean to love a child? What does it mean to love your husband? What does it mean to you? What does compassion mean to you? What does empathy mean to you? So share those aspects of yourself with them. Yeah? And if you are married and you have a spouse, share with them how you met your partner. Share with them how you met your spouse. As you write up this letter, go into a little bit of detail. Grant yourself a bit of latitude to share those things so that, because they are very important, these encounters and how these encounters move you to where you ended. Yeah? Because they would now have an interest in who they are. They have an interest in who they are. Interestingly, I was having a conversation with one of my friends who lives in the UK. In fact, it's my colleague and my friend and brother. We were actually just bouncing thoughts about it. And one of the things we spoke about, which is very, very important to us, is children who are of African descent, who are born in the diaspora, born out of the country where their parents grew up, and the conflicts and the difficulties the children. Worse still, children who end up going to schools that only have the right children with the right culture, and, and in a country where their parents did not grow, and their parents cannot identify with the culture that the children are learning in school. And when the children come home, they want to impose their own culture, which is the culture in which they grew. Yeah? So those are very important aspects related to how we meet people and how we encounter our partners, our spouses, if you have a wife, for that matter. Another very important aspect is to share your feelings about education. What is it about education? What is it about education? A week ago, I was having a conversation with my daughter, and we were speaking about it. And I asked her, what was education? And we had a big debate. We always have this debate. Big debate in what education really means. Yeah? So share those details with them. Share equally the value of work. Share with them in this letter, in your legacy letter, what a work ethic is. How not to just give up on something before you see it again. How when you start a specific job, you start a specific activity, or you make sure you take it to them. Share with them. In fact, it's not all roses, it's not all flowers. Life is not all flowers and roses. There are also challenges. So if you've had some challenges in your time, share them in this life. Share these challenges with them and share with them what how you navigated those challenges and how they've grown so that any challenges that they face, if they should not find it as something that is new or that is true. Because we all go through different types of challenges. Some people go through health challenges, some people physical challenges, everyone goes through one challenge or the other. Some people go through the challenge of addiction and all of that. Yeah? And then share some of your special memories with them. For some people, it's the day they got married. For some people, it's the day they met their spouse or their partner. For others, it's probably an amazing trip they took. For others, it could be what they got the dream job that they had. When they went to school, they dreamed they were going to be a pilot, and finally they became a pilot, and that was the greatest, memory for them. But some people may have been the first day they got into a plane. Yeah. So share your special memories in this legacy. And as you share these memories, also don't leave out experiences that are significant. Don't leave out certain, you'll find that there are certain things that are defining in your life. So don't leave out those defining moments. If you also know how to cook, if you know how to whatever you know how to do with your hands, like going to the kitchen and cook, make all kinds of meals. If you know any of that, especially if they are meals that you were taught how to make them by your mother or your father, for that matter, share with them those meals. If you even have some of it, you can put together a recipe for them. Put together a recipe within the letter. Say, these are the meals I love. These are the ones I know how to make. This is how. This is the recipe. This is how you make it. Bear in mind, maybe by the third or the fourth generation, some of the things we eat now will not even be available. People will not even be eating them. So when I'm talking about this now, it could seem very trivial, but in 2-3 generations, children may not be eating what we are eating. So make sure that you don't hesitate to share those the recipes of the things that you know may be also beneficial for them in the future. Yeah? And if you know how to grow a tree, in my village where I come from, we are specialists in palm wine. Yeah, when you talk of palm wine, my village is, we have some of the best people who make palm wine, who tap palm wine from the raffia fishes. Yeah, so we can share the experience of how that is done. Yeah, I will experience it quite minimally, but there are some of my peers, my mates, who actually thrive in the brew and the tapping. So these are just some thoughts that I thought I should share with you today. These are just some elements of how you craft your your legacy letter. You can go as far as you want. You can explore it as deep as you want. But the whole idea is that share your life's story in a way that can be captivating, in a way that can be important for the generations to come. You will not be there to tell them about yourself. You will not be there to tell them about who your parents are. You will not be there to tell them about the life experiences that you have. So it is extremely important that as we consider this entire generational wealth complex, that we do not forget the aspect of writing. In fact, as Africans, one of the biggest challenges that we have had is the fact that we have not been the ones who have written about ourselves. We are not the ones who have written our history. I'm very, very grateful that my father is still alive. And when I went through this journey of writing this book, I have spent quite a lot more time trying to know where he really comes from. What are the things he did? Where did he go to school? How did he end up in that school? You know, and I'm actually written all of this down. And for me, it's a massive blessing and it's something that I have to share with my children. And I hope they will be able to share with their own children. This is where your grandfather came from. This is the school he went to. This is how he met your grandmother. Yeah? So take some time, go through this video again, identify, see the things, have the reflection for yourself, make some notes, and craft a legacy letter for the generations. It will be a very, very important component for the lives of your children's children's children. It will be a very, very important tool for their own lives to actually understand where they come from. Yeah? Thank you very much for watching with us today. I've seen quite a number of comments here. I can see my brother Valentine from Cameroon. Wow. I see. Oh, birth is an 8. Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Vali. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. In fact, I just had a chat with him literally 5 minutes before this, and he stepped up and he joined the show. Thank you so much, my brother. I greatly appreciate the time you have spent to watch the the, the broadcast. I greatly appreciate it. So I'm looking forward to what we are going to be doing next week, Tuesday, same time. You are welcome to join again. Invite others to join. For those who are not here, share the links. We have it on Facebook, we have it on YouTube, we have it on the premiere on LinkedIn from Saturday, from Thursday. We premiere on LinkedIn from Thursday. So thank you all so much for joining us. Don't forget to join our LinkedIn community, our Telegram community, not LinkedIn. Don't forget to join our Telegram community. All you do is go onto Telegram, and you search Gen World Creation, and you'll find us there. And from time to time, I'm just posting a few elements related to generational wealth creation and the master plan, how you craft the generational wealth from now going forward. Because there will be no excuse for those of us who already have the knowledge right now not to start creating the kind of wealth that will be valuable for us to transfer to the next generation. And remember, in one of the videos, we said, what you transfer, or what is more important that you transfer, is what you leave in your children, and not what you leave for your children. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to having you again sometime next week. Tuesday night, same time. Don't forget to go onto YouTube and like and follow all our pages on the different social media platforms. All you need to do is just search my name and you'll find me. Thank you so much and have a blessed evening. God bless you.